All right, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys sent in a research paper that looks at using machine learning to identify pump and dump schemes, and
Oh, yeah.
I gotta say, it definitely piqued my interest. Can algorithms really predict those shady crypto pumps? Like, that's what we're gonna try to figure out.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Especially since we're seeing so many everyday investors jumping into the crypto market.
Right.
Uh, the idea that there could be a system out there that might protect them from these scams,
Yeah.
it's pretty intriguing.
It is. It feels like every other week there's a new headline about some pump and dump that left people holding the bag.
You're right.
This research paper from the University of Zurich, they claim they've actually cracked the code using this Z-score model, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So before we get into how all that works, let's just kind of refresh our memories, right? What exactly is a pump and dump scheme out there in the wild west of crypto?
All right, well, picture this. You've got a group of manipulators. They gather on platforms like Telegram, and they pick some small-cap cryptocurrency, something that they can easily manipulate.
Right.
And they start hyping it up to their followers. They're essentially manufacturing buzz, creating that, that to-the-moon mentality that triggers that fear of missing out, the classic FOMO.
Ah, yes, FOMO, the siren song of the crypto world. So they're playing on psychology.
Absolutely.
But what's fascinating to me is this research actually breaks down a pump and dump into these like distinct phases,
Right.
almost like a scammer's playbook. What are some of the key phases?
They identified 6. So it starts with an announcement, just a heads up that a pump is coming,
Yeah.
then a countdown just to kind of build anticipation and that sense of urgency. Then, bam, they release the name of the target coin, triggering this like coordinated buying frenzy.
Or it's like a perfectly choreographed dance of deception.
Yeah, exactly. After the initial surge, they usually share summaries of the pump results, boasting about the profits. Of course, there can be delays or even cancellations, which just adds to the chaos and confusion.
Right.
What's surprising to me is that all this is happening in plain sight on these messaging platforms. It's like they're not even trying to hide it.
Yeah, they're like waving a red flag, daring someone to catch them. But how do you even begin to track something like this?
That's where this research gets really compelling. They analyzed over 91,000 Telegram messages.
Wow.
And they weren't just reading through them, they were training a computer to recognize the language patterns, the telltale signs of a pump in action.
So they created like a digital detective that can like sniff out these schemes just based on the chatter and Telegram groups?
Yeah, pretty much. But they didn't stop at just analyzing messages. The researchers also incorporated real-time market data into their prediction model.
Oh, that's interesting. To me, market data always just felt so chaotic.
Right.
Almost impossible to predict.
Absolutely.
So how can you use market data to predict something as seemingly random as a pump and dump? Walk me through it.
Well, when a coin is being pumped, its trading behavior just goes haywire. There's this sudden surge in volume and price, which is a massive deviation from its historical norms. Imagine looking at a calm pond and suddenly a geyser erupts. That's what a pump looks like in the market data.
Okay, so they're looking for those massive spikes, those red flags that kind of scream, hey, some fishy's going on here.
Right.
But how do you even quantify those red flags? I mean, how can you be sure it's not just, normal market fluctuation?
Well, that's where the Z-score comes in.
Okay.
It's this statistical measure that tells you how unusual a coin's recent trading activity is compared to its past. It essentially quantifies those geysers you mentioned, so you can see how much they deviate from that calm pond, the coin's usual behavior. The higher the Z-score, the greater the likelihood that something is manipulating the market.
Okay, so the Z-score is kind of like a crypto lie detector test.
Yeah.
You can see right through the smoke and mirrors of the pump. But how accurate is this thing? Can you actually use it to, avoid getting caught in one of these schemes?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The model correctly predicted the target coin within the top 5 possibilities 55.8% of the time. But it gets even better. They could predict the target coin within the top 10 a whopping 74.4% of the time.
Whoa, that's actually really impressive. So you're telling me there's a decent chance I could actually use this model to stay ahead of the scammers. It's like having a secret weapon against market manipulation.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
But, and there's always a but, there's a catch. This model works best just seconds before the pump happens. So we're talking about a very narrow window of opportunity.
So it's more like a last-minute alert system than like a long-term crystal ball. You wouldn't be able to plan your investments weeks in advance.
Right.
But you could potentially dodge a bullet if you're quick enough on the draw.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like that scene in a Western, right? Where the hero sees the glint of sunlight off the villain's gun just before he fires.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the anatomy of a pump and dump. We see how this Z-score model is like a digital detective. But who are the usual victims? I mean, what kind of coins are they pumping and dumping?
So the research focused on pump events across a bunch of different exchanges. Hotbit, Token, XT.com, Poloniex.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that most of the targeted coins were small to mid-cap.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. It's much easier to manipulate a coin with lower overall value, less capital needed to move the needle.
Right. It's like the difference between trying to, like, push a car
Yeah.
versus a semi-truck. The car is going to move a lot easier.
Exactly.
So we're talking about coins that are maybe, like, flying under the radar, not as established as the big players like Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Exactly. The median market cap of the pump coins was just $2.7 million.
Okay.
Not chump change, but definitely not in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm. Right, but still enough to be enticing to, to everyday investors,
Yes.
especially those who are new to the crypto scene and maybe don't have the same level of experience or skepticism
Absolutely.
as someone who's been in the game for a while.
Yeah, and there's one case highlighted in the paper that really stood out to me. There's this coin, TCO-KKI, that was pumped 9 times.
9 times.
Across 4 different exchanges.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a repeat offender.
9 times. I mean, come on, that's got to be some kind of record. It makes you wonder, like, why TCO-KKI? What was it about that coin? Was it particularly susceptible? Was it the same group targeting it over and over again? I mean, that's not just bad luck. There's something else going on there.
It's definitely a question worth pondering.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to the persistence of these scammers, but it also highlights the potential for patterns and predictability in these schemes. If we can understand what made TKKI such a desirable target, it might give us some insights into how to protect other coins from suffering the same fate.
All right, so we've got the players, we've got the playbook, we've even got a potential weapon to fight back. But I'm dying to know what actually happens during a pump. Paint me a picture. What does it look like when one of these schemes is in full swing?
Well, for that, you'll have to stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive.
All right, listeners, you heard it here. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with part 2 of our deep dive into the world of pump and dump schemes.
We'll be back.
Still with us. All right, deep divers, welcome back. Last we left off, we were talking about TOKI, that coin that got pumped 9 times. 9 times. I mean, come on, that's got to be some kind of record. It really does make you think, how some coins might be more susceptible to this kind of manipulation than others.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What actually happens during a pump? Imagine you're watching the price chart of a coin. Like, walk me through it.
So you'd see, a relatively stable line, maybe some minor fluctuations. Then all of a sudden, boom, the price just shoots straight up like a rocket and trading volume explodes. It's like someone just flipped a switch and unleashed this torrent of buying activity.
So it's like a feeding frenzy. Everyone's just piling in, hoping to ride that rocket to the moon.
Yeah.
But who's actually driving this surge? Is it just everyday investors getting caught up in the hype?
Well, you remember those manipulators we talked about?
Yeah.
They're the ones orchestrating this whole thing.
Okay.
They're strategically placing these large buy orders to drive the price up.
Uh-huh.
Creating that artificial demand that sucks everyone else in.
Ah, so they're like the puppet masters, right?
Yeah.
Pulling the strings behind the scenes while everyone else is, dancing to their tune. And this is where they start cashing out, right? Selling into that frenzy they created.
That's the game plan. They're unloading their holdings at these inflated prices while everyone else is scrambling to get on board, thinking they're missing out on, the next big thing.
Yeah, it's like setting a trap and watching everyone walk right into it. And the paper actually compares the impact of these pumps on different exchanges, right?
Yeah.
Did they find any, interesting variations?
Yeah, they did. For example, Poloniex, a smaller exchange, they actually saw lower overall volume compared to, say, KuCoin.
Mm-hmm.
A larger platform.
Which makes sense, right? Larger exchanges, more liquidity, more players in the game, so
Yes.
it takes a bigger wave to make a splash.
Exactly, but here's the catch. Even though the volume was lower on Poloniex, the price increases were much sharper.
Wait, so the smaller exchange actually saw more dramatic price swings? Why is that?
Well, think of it this way. A smaller exchange has less depth in its order book, meaning there are fewer buy and sell orders available at any given time. So when this large influx of buy orders hits, it can push the price up much more easily. Kind of like trying to rock a small boat versus a giant cruise ship.
Yeah, so the lesson here is that, like, smaller exchanges, they might seem like a good way to get in on the action,
Right.
but they can also be more volatile,
Yeah.
more susceptible to manipulation. It's like a high risk, high reward scenario.
Exactly. This highlights the importance of really understanding the dynamics of different exchanges
Yeah.
before you just jump in head first.
Mm.
It's not just about chasing the highest potential gains,
Right.
but also being aware of the potential risks.
For sure. Okay, so we've got the big picture, but what about individual traders? Did the researchers dive into how they behave during these pumps?
They did. And they uncovered some pretty interesting insights. By analyzing order sizes, they can actually distinguish between different trader motivations. Some traders were clearly in on the scheme, placing large orders early on to drive the price up.
Oh, interesting.
Those are the insiders, the ones who stand to profit the most from the pump.
It's almost like watching a game of poker where you can see the telltale signs of a bluff. Except in this case, the stakes are a lot higher.
Right, exactly. While other traders exhibited more cautious behavior, placing smaller orders or even selling during the pump, maybe sensing something was off or just trying to lock in some quick profits.
So it's not just this, like, homogenous mass of sheep being led to the slaughter. There's a whole spectrum of players with different motivations,
Absolutely.
different strategies, different levels of awareness.
Exactly. And that complexity makes it even more challenging to really identify and prevent these schemes.
Right. Okay, so we've seen how these pumps unfold, the market dynamics, the different players involved, but the big question is, can you actually protect yourself from these scams?
That is the big question. The researchers did delve into some potential safeguards. They analyzed different token standards to see if any are less vulnerable to manipulation.
So this gets into, like, the technical underpinnings of different cryptocurrencies. For our listeners who might not be familiar, what exactly are token standards?
Well, think of them like blueprints for creating different types of cryptocurrencies. The most common one you'll encounter is ERC-20, which is used for fungible tokens.
Fungible meaning interchangeable, like dollars or Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Each unit is identical, so it doesn't matter which specific Bitcoin you have. They all hold the same value.
Precisely. But then you also have non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, which are unique and indivisible.
Right, those digital assets everyone's been talking about.
Ex-
Like, that Bored Ape Yacht Club picture that sold for millions. So how do these different token standards play into the pump and dump game?
Well, what the researchers found is that NFTs are much harder to pump because of their unique nature. It's difficult to orchestrate that coordinated buying frenzy when each token is one of a kind.
So if you're looking to avoid pumps and dumps, maybe stick to those unique non-fungible tokens. Like, at least for now, they seem to be flying under the scammers' radar.
It seems that way. But the vast majority of cryptocurrencies out there are still fungible tokens, which makes them, prime targets for manipulation. And what's even more concerning is that newer token standards, which haven't been pumped yet, could become attractive targets to manipulators as they gain popularity and trading volume.
Right. It's like this, like, endless game of cat and mouse with the scammers constantly adapting their tactics to target new and emerging assets. It makes you wonder, is any crypto truly safe in this Wild West?
That's a great question. And it brings up another crucial detail from the research. Their analysis only focused on pumps that were organized on Telegram.
Oh, right?
What about other platforms like Discord or even newer platforms that are popping up all the time?
Oh man, you're right. It's like trying to plug holes in a leaky boat. You fix one and another one springs up somewhere else, and this whole social media landscape is constantly evolving,
Right.
which makes it even harder to, like, track and predict these schemes.
Absolutely. It highlights the need for ongoing research and vigilance.
Mhm.
We can't afford to become complacent, especially with so much money at stake.
Okay, so we've seen how these pumps work, the players involved, the market dynamics, the potential for protection. But what I really want to know is, what are your overall thoughts on this research? Do you think the Z-score model has the potential to, like, make a real difference in the fight against pump and dumps?
It's definitely a promising tool, and the accuracy they achieved is impressive, especially considering how quickly these schemes unfold. But it's important to remember this is just one piece of the puzzle. We need a multifaceted approach that combines technology, regulation, and education to truly combat these scams.
So it's not like a magic bullet,
Right.
but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's like having a new tool in the toolbox, but you still need the knowledge and skills to use it effectively.
Exactly. And ultimately, the most powerful weapon is an informed investor.
Right.
The more you understand about these scams, the better equipped you are to protect yourself.
All right, listeners, you heard it here. Knowledge is power in the crypto world. But before you go off and start calculating Z-scores, we've got one more thought-provoking question to leave you with. Something that really got me thinking. So we were just talking about how knowledge is power in this crazy crypto world, especially with all these pump and dump schemes, right? But here's a thought that really kind of blew my mind. What if the scammers are using the same tech that's supposed to protect us?
Yeah, it's a scary thought, right? Like the idea that AI, the tool we're hoping will shield us from manipulation, could actually be used to create even more sophisticated scams. It really is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and we've already seen AI make its way into finance,
Yeah.
right? Like with algorithmic trading and all that. Computers are already out there making like lightning fast decisions, buying and selling, based on pre-programmed rules.
Exactly. So it's not a huge leap to imagine those same algorithms being used for, well, less noble purposes.
Right.
I mean, think about it. If machine learning can identify patterns and predict market movements, could it also be used to manipulate those movements, like with pinpoint accuracy?
So theoretically, an AI could like figure out the perfect combination of factors, the right coin, the right timing, the right messaging to create a pump and dump that's practically undetectable. Be like the perfect crime executed by an algorithm.
Yeah, that's the fear, and it's not entirely far-fetched.
Yeah.
As AI becomes more sophisticated, it's something we really can't ignore. It's like we're entering this whole new era of financial warfare where the battle lines are drawn in code.
And if we can't even tell if it's a human or a machine behind these scams, how do we even hold anyone accountable? How do you regulate something that's constantly evolving, adapting, learning from its mistakes? It's like trying to catch smoke.
It's a huge challenge that that lawmakers and regulators are already dealing with, and it's only going to get tougher as AI technology advances.
Hmm.
We need to be thinking ahead, anticipating the potential pitfalls, and developing safeguards before it's too late.
It's like we're in this race against time, trying to stay one step ahead of the technology. But hey, let's not get too carried away with the doom and gloom, right? I mean, AI isn't like inherently evil. It can be used for good too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're already seeing machine learning being used to detect fraud, money laundering
Yeah.
in the financial world. And this Z-score model, that we've been talking about, it's a perfect example of how AI can be a force for good, helping to protect investors from manipulation.
Right. So it's not about like demonizing AI. It's about understanding its potential, both good and bad, right? It's about how we choose to use it, the ethical framework, the safeguards we put in place to prevent its misuse.
That's the key takeaway. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to be having these conversations now, developing those ethical guidelines for AI and finance, setting those boundaries before we find ourselves in a situation where the technology has just outpaced our ability to control it.
Well said. This has been a fascinating, albeit slightly unnerving, deep dive into the world of pump and dumps. We've explored the mechanics of these schemes, the role of technology, and the ethical implications of AI in this wild west of finance.
And I think the most important takeaway for our listeners is awareness. The more you understand about these scams, the better equipped you are to protect yourself.
So do your research, be skeptical of hype, don't let FOMO cloud your judgment, and remember, if something sounds too good to be true.
It probably is.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious and stay informed.